I'm Gold Derby editor Daniel Montgomery here for our Meet the Experts panel with some of this year's standout TV showrunners. I'm here with Akiva Goldsman from The Crowded Room, Debora Cahn from The Diplomat, Michael Dinner from Justified City Primeval, Lee Eisenberg from Lessons in Chemistry, and Zal Batmanglij from A Murder at the End of the World. So first off, I'm curious about how do you guys go about, creating a good and productive environment for your writer's room to generate the best story possible and the best characters and best ideas? Start with Lee.
I would say a lot of dark chocolate, a lot of Diet Coke. Those are I think those are the key, for me at least, the keys to a strong writer's room. No, I think that I've been in writer's rooms for almost 20 years now, and I think it just needs to feel safe and collaborative and people kind of pitching on top of each other's ideas. I think it's much easier to say no than it is to say yes and so, and when people feel comfortable, they share personal stories. And I think that specificity and that texture, when it comes through in the room and then can be translated into the scripts, I think that's where you get the best stuff. But really mainly the
chocolate. Chocolate is good.
Dark chocolate.
How about you, Michael?
Well, we were lucky because, we did a show and then we ended up getting back together again. We had six of us who had done the original Justified together. As I said before, it wasn't so much that we're trying to reboot the show. We were trying to reboot the feeling we had doing the show. So 6 of us had worked together before we added Walter Mosley and Issa Davis. And we started the room up in the pandemic. And I don't want to say that it was easy, but we had such a familiarity with each other and a respect for each other. Look, a lot of times you do shows and it's drudgery. And when you have one where you have a great time, you'd like to make it last forever. So we got back together again. We got the band back, and it was a lot of fun. It was during the days of the pandemic. We would work a couple sessions a day. My kids were in pandemic school, and the door would open up about midway through the first session, and they want to know what they had for lunch that day. So it was, but it was a lot of fun.
Akiva?
I think I'm with Lee. I think a lot of soda and a lot of chocolate. I think those are really useful. I think this thing that we do is really, it sounds oxymoronic, but it's collaborative art. And that means that you have to be okay saying things and being wrong. And we come from a culture often where there's sort of, unless every idea is sticking, somehow we're failing. That's not true. Those of us who are writers know that there's 100 bad pages before the good one. You just have to write through them, and I think that's true of ideas. And so, as everybody else is saying, it's safety, it's kindness, it's being gentle, it's being supportive, and it's also staying to some degree, goal directed, knowing that we are here to make a thing. That's the outcome goal. So I like to think of a room as it's a teaching hospital. You have urgency, but also it is the opportunity to get better at it.
Zal?
I love that teaching hospital metaphor. For me and Britt, I think when we start ourselves, we think of it as a garden, and we think of ourselves as gardeners. And so we're tending to the different ideas, trying to give them the right amount of sun and water. And the ideas, they have a life of their own, like plants in a garden. Then I think when we've had writers' rooms, it's about bringing on more gardeners into the garden, and putting the story first, putting the plants first, so that it's not about people's individual egos, but it's about the story. What does the story need? What does it want? How does it want to enter the world? And I think, like Akiva said, the more hands on deck, the more collaboration, I think the better the story becomes, because it becomes truer in some ways, because people put their own personal experience into it.
I've always felt like writing is like a tax that I pay so that I'm allowed to do things like hang out in a writer's room. I definitely didn't get into this because I loved the relationship between me and the page. And and particularly starting a show, developing a show during COVID, we were all so starving for human contact that the fact that we could, we started out on Zoom, and eventually we came together and it was live, and it was like such a precious thing. So that was just fun and exciting, and made it, a good reminder that the fact that we get to sit around with a bunch of people and tell like humiliating stories from our childhood and things that happened at dinner yesterday, like we were so much more aware of the gift that was. I also think I was really interested in a world, and I was interested in characters. The plot that was going to support the journey of those people and our experience of that world. I like a lot of plots, or none. Like I think the fact that I didn't have really fixed ideas about that going in made it clear that like I was open. Like I desperately wanted great story ideas, architecture ideas from other people, and used them. So hopefully that made it much more obvious to the staff that like I was not looking to do this. There was plenty of room for other voices.
And now that we are on the other side of a lengthy writer's strike, as we're recording this, the actor strike is still ongoing. But as writers, how do you reflect on kind of your craft and your career, and where that's taken you, and in light of everything that's been going on, Zal?
I mean, I think that there are labor strikes happening all over this country and all over the world, and that the writers and now the actors are just another group of people who feel dissatisfied with the disparity between the haves and the have-nots, but also technology is just changing the whole medium and everything. And so we're also trying to fight that, trying to put in safeguards into that. And I think that's a good thing to do. So I'm glad that happened. Fundamentally, I think the fact that writers don't hold their copyright, even some portion of their copyright, is the original sin that this whole film community has been built on. And I think we will be fighting and struggling and feeling unhappy until there's some sort of sharing on the sort of journey of that copyright,
What do you think, Deborah?
That's a really interesting point. I have to think about that. I had not thought about it in that way. Thank you for saying that. So what the strike did for me was it gave me a window into the kind of granular experience of what so much of the community was going through. It's a very different world than when I was coming up. And like between COVID, and I live in New York, and there's a show here like not very often. So every show that I'm on feels like its own extremely unique little organism. And it was useful for me to kind of see what isn't unique to our situation, what's become kind of the standard throughout the industry. And it, I think, gave me a lot more compassion for what it's like for people to come up in the industry now. When I was starting out, it felt like there was just this endless appetite for material, and all of the material demanded a large group of people. So if you wanted to do it and you really stuck with it, you were going to do it, like you were going to figure it out, and you were going to find a way to have a career. And that that sense of, this is a career that has a path, like medicine does, and like law school, like if you do the work, you get a job. That isn't the case anymore in this industry. And it, I was glad that I learned more about that.
Akiva?
I'm old. and happy to be old. But paradigms shift, and they shift right out from under you, and that's amazing. But the world is different now, and I think the strike is, those of us on this Zoom are in rare air, and so we can imagine that it is the way it was. It's not, and in a very fundamental way, and I too am so fascinated by the copyright idea, which weirdly has never occurred to me either. So I second, thank you for saying that. But I do think that if you make a thing, its value should probably, if you make a commercial thing, its value should probably be tied to the people who want to consume the thing. I mean, that seems sort of reductive, but true. Like, if I make popcorn and you want to eat the popcorn, then I'll keep making it and you'll eat more of it, and then I'll hire more people to make more popcorn. I don't know why you would. I don't really like popcorn, but you understand the point. And that disconnection, the unhooking of the metric of performance and success and performance and remuneration, seems so counterintuitive. The idea that now perception, which drives stock price, then relates to the success of the entity that actually manages the creation, but not the creation, is really complicated and seems unduly so. So I think labor actions often are to sort through and to make things simpler in the way they should be simpler, to get rid of the labyrinthian folds between what should be a straight line. And labor actions are for the next generation. So hopefully those of us who are here will have struggled in order to make those of us who come next struggle less. That's why we do it. Certainly, I think that's why we.
Well, I agree with Akiva. I mean, look, it's been a struggle, and we've heard people describe it as an existential struggle, and hopefully we're coming out the other side of this strike, and it will benefit those who follow us. I'm a member of a number of guilds, so I'm also concerned about all the people that work in this business who have been out of work for a long time, and it's kind of crushing. So I'm hoping that now that the writer's strike is over and the directors settled before that, and hopefully SAG will settle and we can move on and worry about the work that we're doing now, but also know that we've kind of paved the way for the future, I think.
Lee?
I mean, I agree with everything that everyone else said. I wish I went first. No, I think with these things, it's a few things. One thing that happens during strikes, and I was a staff, or I guess I was kind of a mid-level writer during the last one. It's about community. I mean, you pick it with people. There were now things are changed, and there's Slacks and there's text threads and all that, but it brings people together in a way also. And the struggle for the Writers Guild is every writer, not every writer, but so many writers are, their interests are not aligned. And so there are screenwriters that have different goals than the TV writers do, that have different goals than the late night writers, and the animation writers aren't part of the guild. And so when you look at some of the gains, it's, there's large scale gains, and I agree with Akiva that, it's all for the next generations. And then there are things that really resonated for me. Like, I was part of a writing team for a really long time, and I was a staff writer on The Office, and we did 22 episodes, and I wrote 3 of those episodes. Of the 22 episodes, we didn't get paid for any of them. So the fact that being part of a writing team and then not getting paid for scripts, that changes things a lot. I mean, that at that time, would have come close to doubling my salary. And so getting those types of gains that maybe don't resonate for everyone, that changes things for a lot of people. Gains in late night, all of those things. I think that hopefully every writer can kind of point to something and say, okay, this really helped me, or this really will help the next generation. But this has been going on for so long. I mean, what this is doing to the industry and to the people below the line is so horrible. And I mean, I'm praying that any moment now, I get 5 texts that say SAG is settled. These things, I mean, not working for 6 months, setting aside the writers and the actors. I mean, it can decimate an industry and can also just destroy lives. I pray that this is coming to a close.
Yeah, I also hope that things are moving in the direction towards ending that, because I'd love to see all of you create more and see what you're able to do and what the entire writing community and acting community are able to do, because no one can do this without you guys, which is, I think, one of the primary things that I've taken away from these actions. So thank you all for joining me today, and it's been a pleasure talking to each of you.
Thank you so much.